And I think if a lot of managers approach that way, instead of just thinking about, well, we need to get X done, yeah, I think you're going to be more successful. That's just me.
Hey, I'm Nick.
And I'm Graeme.
And this is the Dude, Where's My Code podcast. This is episode number 9. Graeme, you and I were chatting with Sean Cooper. Sean was giving us a bit of a rundown about his career journey and how he had these really impactful moments with leaders and management in his career that really stuck with him throughout his journey, and how he was able to use those and leverage them in his own management style.
Yeah, it's really cool to talk to leaders who really view their job as creating opportunities for others and really bringing the industry up. Obviously, you want to do right by your employer, but at the same time, I think I really loved his perspective on giving other people chances and just making space for people to grow around you as well.
Yeah, we think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. Do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and sit back and enjoy. We'll see you next time.
So shall I start with the whole background and the wild way I got here?
I think that would be kind of cool. Like I said before, I think Graeme and I are always interested in hearing about people's journeys because I think something that's a little bit challenging for other people, maybe online, if they're not yet on their journey or they're thinking about doing it, there's a lot of stuff that kind of sets you up to think this is how it must be. So people then feel like, well, then I must go do these things. But the reality is, like, that's a subset of people. And there's a huge subset of people that maybe not a lot of people are exposed to that just have completely different journeys that are much more natural and flowing. So, yeah, we'd love to hear it.
Well, I'm definitely on the non-traditional track. The funny thing is I was actually exposed to programming very early on in life. My father was a civil engineer, big computer nerd, loved computers. And, we had computers in the house since I was a little kid. I literally wrote my first code at age 8. Like, Dad teach me to program in BASIC. Had some stuff, was very fortunate in school to get to do some cool things and whatnot. But, like, it was interesting, but it didn't excite me. I wasn't like, this is what I want to do at 10 years old. No. Far from it. So, 2 years in Hawaii, and I'm like, I want to go build web pages. I think web pages are going to be a thing. I think, I don't know, but I feel like this might be a thing, right? We're talking 97, right? Went back home. I'm originally from Juneau, Alaska. Went back home for a year to figure out where do I need to go, because nobody's got a web development program or, and at that time it really didn't overlap with traditional CS, right? It was web was kind of the new weird thing, and right? Is it art students or is it nerds? We don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Turns out both. Right. But at the time, nobody knew where to put these people. Moved to Seattle to go to a graphic arts school. And that was okay for a little bit. But I got tired of doing all the old media classes. I'm like, I want to work with computers. I don't want to do charcoal. So chucked that, joined the real world. Wound up managing for a major drugstore chain, doing overnights, and kind of just spinning my wheels a little bit. But I was like, I needed a direction. Okay, well, I'll go back to school for something, right? Went to my bosses, asked if I could have a set schedule so I could go back to school, and they said, well, actually, we'd prefer you not to, because we'll teach you everything you need to know to run a store. And I went, that's not what I want to do with my life. This is the nice thing right now. Cool. Started looking for jobs, found a job with Eddie Bauer at their help desk. And I literally talked my boss into giving me a trial. Like, I have no tech experience on my resume, right? And I'm like, look, the part of their thing is Unix based. I had some Unix experience from college. I said, look, it's a text-based interface. It's designed by people. If it's designed by people, people can figure it out. I'm pretty good with this stuff. She's like, I'll give you 2 days. We'll see how it goes. Cool. Literally, and I'm eternally thankful for her giving me that shot. Well, the 2 days worked out. Had a good run there. Did that through 2004. Financial changes, layoffs. Sean's out of a job at the end of 2004. Spent most of 2005 unemployed. Well, .NET had come out in '02, right? And I was like, well, maybe it might be a thing. I don't know. And you guys know, like, you never, new thing comes out, you never know if it's going to be a thing or not, right?
Sure.
Give it a few years. And if it's a Microsoft product, give it a few years till it's fully baked. And I say this as a guy who makes my living on Microsoft stuff, but
I only work at Microsoft. It's
but I was
okay.
yeah, I got some time, yeah. But I got some time on my hands. I'm gonna teach myself .NET. So wrote some stuff, learned the basics. Cool. 2006, got a job as a developer, sole developer for a company. They had moved things around. The position changed locations. The person who had been occupying the position chose not to move. So now the position's open. I slotted in there. And I had, again, like great confluence of managerial support. My director and actually my CEO, who had his PhD in computer science, turns out. Yeah, right. Like, I was like, well, no kidding. And he's running a tooling manufacturing company. But really let me get crazy with the cheese whiz. People are starting to talk about web services. This is 2006, right? Web services are becoming a thing. Okay, cool. Let's experiment with this and let's see what we can do to solve some of these problems that this company has. This company is actually 5 companies dressed up in a trench coat pretending to be one. Let's see what we can do. And had a lot of fun and basically turned that company into a platform. Web services on top of data sources, building apps on top of that, all on .NET, and did some really neat things. And after a couple wins, where people are like, oh, so if we have programmers, we can do things and we can get more efficiencies and everything. They're like, well, can you do this and can you do this and can you do this? I'm like, the answer is yes, but not by myself.
Right. Mm-hmm. At some point, it stops scaling, right?
I only scale so far. So I went to my boss. I said, look, this is all the demand I have for all this stuff. Can we get some people? And that snowballed into me building out a team. And I really, like, I didn't seek to lead the team. I just happened to lead it because I was there the longest. But I also had that vision of where we were going with everything. So that was my first managerial gig. And when we actually had a team in place, again, my management was awesome. They went, you're going to management training. Yeah. How often do you hear that? Like, normally it's just you get thrown to the wolves, figure it out, right?
I was just talking about that with someone specifically where companies move people into management positions or leadership positions, and then it's like, there you go, like, manage now. Like, we're so happy to train developers on development skills they need, or, you know, whatever it is. But as soon as you're management, for some reason, managerial skills are just kind of expected.
You know, it's that way in so many industries. I've got friends in other industries that have moved up, and they're like, boom, you're a manager now. You're the top sales guy. Go manage. And you're like, yeah. The skills needed to manage X are different than the skills needed for X. There may be some overlap, and having that understanding of X is good, but I'm 100% that a good manager can manage any team, even outside of their specialty industry. I'm not saying I want to go manage a sales team. I'm just saying I might do okay.
Yeah, like the skills involved in managing the team are the things that are applicable to other teams, right? Like that part, you know, crosses over. Of course, having the domain knowledge helps significantly, but it's not, like we've talked about this before on this podcast, it's not a strict requirement to be extremely technical, but I think probably one of the most beneficial parts of having the technical depth is just that you can communicate easier. Like you can meet people kind of in the middle, and that part becomes easier. Or having direction with technical details comes easier, but it's not strictly a requirement to make it work.
No, absolutely. My last position, I came in as a non-technical manager for a team with a tech stack that I'd never played with.
Yeah.
And we were successful. Ultimately, I picked up some of the tech stack. But
Great.
yeah, it's you don't have to be there. But yeah, so that led for a while. There was a layoff, started our own company, left that, have bounced up and down through leadership and IC positions, and invariably all my IC positions ultimately turn into leadership again.
Very
Um,
interesting.
they're like, hey, you seem to be doing well. Would you manage to take care of this? Or here's a few people to help you do the thing. Or yeah. So it's been an interesting thing. And then lately, I'm going to say lately, within the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, I've really made it a focus. I'm like, I've written a lot of code, and I'm very happy with the code I've written and the things I've done. Like, there's still new challenges out there. Cool. But building the management skill set, and I hate to use the word perfecting that, but refining it has become my new, like that's my jam. It used to be like, I'm going to go learn the latest this, and I'm going to deep dive into this, and right. And now management is really what I'm nerding out on. But yeah, so that's how I wound up here.
Awesome.
So.
I have a couple thoughts.
But,
I don't want to jump in
sure.
front of Graeme unless he's ready to go. But one thing that really stuck out to me was I heard you say a couple of times when you were describing one of the roles you had, like, and my management and leadership was really awesome. You said it a couple times, maybe not the exact words, but I'm very curious if you reflect on that, not sort of just the outcomes that came from that, and you were like, obviously that was a really awesome outcome, I'm happy that it happened, but can you reflect on what those qualities were that management and leadership had that you're like, that's what made it such that you think about them as being awesome leaders?
Oh, absolutely. A number of things. Going back to my first manager that really, started my career, right? Like,
sure.
I owe my career to her. One was like, and this is a general theme: enablement. Hey, I've got an idea. Can I go do the thing? Right? And instead of poo-pooing, well, that's not your job. Looking at that and going, that adds value. Yes, you still got to get your job done, but if you want to go do the thing, go do the thing. In the case of my first gig, it was some process refinements and improvements that there were some really awkward processes.
Sure.
Can I help fix these things, right? At my first gig managing, also the same kind of thing. Hey, I've got some crazy ideas. Can I go try this? And rather than, again, saying, no, stay in your lane, this is what we hired you for, my manager said, yeah, let's see what we can do with that. Give me, go take a week, see what you can do. And okay, cool. So the first one was enablement. And that really comes to, I've used the term managerial support. We often think of support coming from below, but a lot of times we need support from above, right? We need those above us to buy in and say, hey, we see what you're doing. We see what you're working on. I got you on this. Go do the thing, right? And that's where, when I have a dev come to me and say, hey, look, I know I'm supposed to be working on this. And when I dug into it, yeah, I can execute this here, but like all of this is garbage and needs to be fixed. Can I fix this? Right? You have two choices. No, do the damn story the way it's written and be done, move on. Or go make the code base better, right? And you have to play with that, based on a lot of different competing, priorities. Yep. But being able to say, if you make that call, hey, go fix that. And then someone goes, well, why is that story taking longer than expected? Here's why, right? Because we're making that, and you're supporting that, or sometimes I say shielding people from, the stuff that rains down. But that managerial support, that enablement of, okay, I've got a crazy idea. Can I go explore this a bit? Was huge. Overall, the mentorship that I got from a number of people of you don't have to have all the answers. That was a huge one. As a as a person, I like having all the answers. I am a know-it-all. And that it's okay to tell your team you don't know. It's okay to tell your team I'll get back to you on that. Those were some big learnings for me early on, and I was very fortunate to learn that early on, not later on.
It's true though, because the trust factor erodes very rapidly if you kind of put on a facade that you happen to know everything, and you like people see, especially if they're technical experts, if you're like, oh yes, so am I, but you're not, like they're like, come on, man, like we know you're not. Like instead of like eroding the trust by pretending and trying to like fake it till you make it, if you're just transparent and you're like, I don't know these things, I'm trying to, you can help me so I can help you more. Like, I think all of that goes such a long way in trying to build trust in teams.
And for me, as someone who, no formal education in basically any of this, there's been a lot of fake it till I make it. Hey, this seems like a thing. I'm going to go figure it out, right? That doesn't work as a manager. Like, I mean, it does. You can say, I'm going to figure it out, but you have to be honest with the team that I'm going to go figure it out.
Yeah.
You don't get to BS about it. But I also had, and not only did they, explicitly coach me on these things, but they also modeled these things.
Right.
And I'm fortunate. I'm a fairly analytical person, so I look and go, why does that work? Why does that not? What are the differences? So for me, being able to look at them and go, this is why I liked these people. This is why I liked working for them, and take that and then try to, bring that into my own, behaviors. So
you've really got me reflecting as you talk. It's kind of making me laugh because I never thought about this way before. My first entry into tech, I worked for BlackBerry in the heyday of BlackBerry.
I wonder if
very large company at the time, 20,000 people maybe when I was there. Quite a machine. And I have multiple stories. A good friend of mine, we were doing manual testing. That's how I got in. And we were testing their installers, build after build after build. And he got into very early automation scripting and was like, this is repetitive and we can make a computer do this. Even if it's like record and playback, click type automation, we can do it. And he did it and was like, hey, I've automated this job. We can make this way faster. Like, what else can we do with this extra time I've earned back? And they basically said, like, don't do that. Like, turn it off. And so
there's all your motivation killed right there.
Oh, it's incredible. So, I mean, what did he do? He just ran it on his desk and got coffee every day, right? Like, of course, like, why not? And there were times when I was looking for things outside of my lane in terms of optimizing the way we do testing and the cost of testing, and those were all shut down. And ultimately, I've done a lot of reflecting and conversing with people to understand why, and I get why now. Whatever, not good practice, but I understand the culture and the environment. But that was early in my career, and it wasn't until maybe the next org when I start seeing examples where I was able to propose new ideas or things that were, as you kind of said, out of my lane, and had people above me that were receptive to that, and either said like, yes, if you can get your job done, you can do that too, or even to the extreme of like, I see value in that, maybe more so than what we had you tasked with. So
go pivot.
That's those situations, which I've had at least some of in my career that I can think of, are all of the ones that advanced me in my career and fundamentally changed something at the organization and the way they approached, whether it was the way they approached automated testing or internal tooling or whatever. I mean, it's like you, I have built teams not intending to be the leader of the team, but because someone I reported to had the wherewithal to say, that's a great idea, we'll invest in that. Who should lead it? I guess it's you. Like, off you go, you know?
You had the idea. It's your baby. Now go.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been an interesting one as one who is, the very non-traditional route on these things, but looking at, and I can offer some negative examples as well. I had a manager that when I left the organization, When I joined the organization, I was working under one person with this team. Wonderful. Like the first 6 months I was there were awesome. Loved it. The last bit, not so much. And I described my manager as an absentee micromanager.
Interesting.
Was never there when I needed him, and then when he was there, was all up in things that he shouldn't even care about. Hey, what about this? And I'm like, I've been trying to talk to you about this for 3 weeks, like, and now you want to talk about this the day before it's supposed to go? Come on, man. Like, I try to use the negative examples as well. What just crushed my soul as a developer. I don't want to do that to other people.
Right.
Yeah. So there's, as much as I look at the positives of these people that I've worked for, I also too look very much at the negatives of, I've had some suboptimal managers. And, what were the specific behaviors there that I want to avoid? And do I want to do the opposite? Not always. Like the opposite may also be not great either. Or do I want to just go 90 degrees from that, behavior?
That's an interesting way to look at it too. Like I think for all of us that are going through like a management journey, definitely reflecting on previous managers is helpful. I know one of the things I've talked to Graeme about in the past is like I over-index personally on the idea when you're joining a new team as a manager, going into that and being like, I don't want to come in and disrupt the team. That's not the goal. The team's already functioning. Let's say for the majority of cases, unless you're specifically brought in and it's like, this is dysfunctional, the team knows you're here to help fix it. So the majority of times it's like, functioning team, you're here to maybe replace a manager, or the team's scaling, now they need a new manager. And being there and disrupting right away is very negative, like in so many aspects. So I mostly go into it taking too much of a step back. And I have a very difficult time being like, okay, now's my time that I need to like stir the pot a little bit to shake things up if I don't see the movement kind of happening. So, but that's the result of me seeing other leadership or management changes where I'm like, what they did was so disruptive, and I never want to see that happen to other teams. So your point about going 90 degrees versus fully.
Yeah. The new person comes in, just has to put their stamp on it. No, I'm with you. Like my last position, I came in and there was a lot that I wanted to change. Like within the first week, I'm like, oh, got huge list
sure,
of I can see where things need to change. Not that I want to change them, right? Like I love the idea of getting a team to a place where there's nothing for me to do. Right? Get it. Y'all are working together on autopilot. Great. And to me, the best coaches are the ones that their presence isn't obvious. Right? And I use the coach and manager, I think, should be very synonymous. And I played a lot of team sports as a kid. But your presence should be felt, but it shouldn't be obvious.
Okay.
Right. If that makes sense. And I think there's a lot of people that want to make, it's like, well, if I'm going to look out for me, I need to make my presence known and felt, or make it obvious, right? Instead of just having it be felt. Yeah. So I get you. And that line is always different on every team.
And I guess that doesn't work for everyone. Which I try to think about and understand. My mentor told me when I became a manager, like if you're doing your job right, no one will know you're doing it.
See, right?
Like that was it. And I really took that, and luckily I feel rather I don't know though. I'm trying to find the right word that doesn't sound like self-inflating. Like I have a bit of a humble nature, and so it works really well for me to be able to say, look, like if my team's doing well, they can get the recognition, and I'm not here for that. And I also believe that if you're in the right environment, people will recognize that your team is effective as a result of you leading or coaching it without needing to do this kind of spotlighted, like, look, like this person. But I also recognize that doesn't work for everybody. And I do wonder how a leader who prefers to be visible might lead a team and empower a team and make the team feel like they're winning together without stealing that spotlight. Like nothing irks me more than week after week updates from departments always coming from the department head or the engineering manager or the director, and you're like, it's always like, we had these big wins, and it's always them talking about it. And like, I just want to see the engine. Show me who wrote this feature. Like, let them talk about it. Let's put faces and names to it. And so that works with me, and I'm happy to like hear other people say that, and I'm like, yes, totally, I agree. But I do feel like there is some that can't be true for everybody, and so for those that want to be, they get value out of like feeling present and feeling like recognized. I do wonder.
So there's part of me that wonders if those people should be in management. Right. So I look, and going back to the previous podcast, looking at parallels throughout the rest of the world, right?
Sure.
I like to look at sports teams, right? Whether it's like I go back to like my own, soccer teams and everything, and basketball, or you look at the pros, right?
Nick knows a lot about sports, so
zero. So, yeah. never played a sport in my life, so that's you go to the gym, but no sports.
So I'll use one example that I think is really good. A guy named Steve Kerr. He was on he was a basketball player. He was on the Chicago Bulls when they did their second run of 3. The Bulls did 3 and then 3, and they've got the most NBA title. Like, it's awesome, right? Cool. And there's a documentary. It's really about Jordan, right? I assume you know who Michael Jordan is, right?
I do know that.
But he talks about it. It's like, yeah, okay. And Steve Kerr was like, yeah, I was good enough to make the team, and I'm happy that I was able to contribute. Okay, the dude sank like a game-winning bucket. He was a definite contributor. Was he Michael Jordan? Was he next Michael Jordan? No, he wasn't. But he was good enough to make the best team in a long time, right? And contribute meaningfully. He has gone on to coach very successfully in the NBA, right? So here's a guy that understands that he gets a lot, and he gets a lot of praise, right? Now, does he have superstars on his team? Absolutely. A guy named Steph Curry. People might have heard of him, right? I know. But at the same time, Steve Kerr is sitting there, and that dude is no slouch any way you look at it, either as a coach or a basketball player. But is he the one that's out there going, yeah, you look at what I did. I made our team win this. No, he said, look, we put together a game plan. We got people to execute. And one of the things that I've learned about myself is I want to take that pride and that ego, that satisfaction of my ego from the achievements of my team, not the achievements of myself. And I think that is the metamorphosis of going from an individual contributor to a manager successfully. There's plenty of times that I wrote a lot of code and I pointed and went, look, I did that. That was awesome. Right? Cool. But when I'm managing the team, look, Bob did this. Carrie did that. Right? Boom, boom, boom. My team did these things. Cool. Maybe I'll say, hey, look, I did this little thing here so that they could move a little better, whatever. I don't know. But calling them out, this is what the team did. Boom. Yeah. To me, you have to put your ego to the back.
I would say like that's the transition from like I to we, right? And I think that starts probably before you hit management. My ideal senior engineers and strong staff engineers are actually leveling up their ability to make everybody else around them good. Right. So you're kind of priming yourself for like, it's not about my individual contributions. It's about my ability to influence a successful team. Yeah. So I guess the problem is if you are a leader, but still trying to lay claim to like, I built this thing under me, it separates you from the team. You're putting yourself on this plane of like, well, I directed this group to do this thing. And so it is me and them. And that's,
maybe I don't think you're going to be as successful.
Maybe that's fundamentally why we tend to see kind of our favorite leaders as the people that are ingrained with the team and are a part of it and are not kind of above and laying.
How many, when we look at, great leaders and people that we respect and, talk about leadership, very few people do the I did this, I came up with this, I dot dot. Like I doesn't get used a lot, except for, well, I've found that this works, or I've found that, it's very much there's a lot more, humility, and if you've read the H Word, great book. Um,
That's the other running
it
joke
is,
on the
humility.
podcast. I don't read, so I don't do sports and I don't read. Those are Graham things. I just program, I guess.
I used to read a lot more. I've life has interrupted that, but um, 2020, 2022, I got 52 books down, so about one a week.
More books than I've read in my life, I think.
23 was not nearly the same. But yeah, the H Word, which is a great one, and then I also got turned on to the 5 dysfunctions of teams, was a really, to me, a very meaningful one there. But a lot of it comes down to take your ego from the right place. Right? If you're orchestrating people, and then again, going back to that, I'm more and more disliking the word managing. It's take ego from the delivery, right? We delivered the thing, right?
Right.
Cool. We got this done. Cool. And highlight your key contributors. Like so-and-so really did this, or, really put in the extra work for whatever. Or one of my favorite things to see a developer do is to go, hey, there's not a lot I can contribute for code-wise, but if somebody's got stuff that needs testing, I will jump on that and test the holy what for out of it for you, right? To me, not a lot of developers really like testing. Let's be honest.
Graham and I have never experienced this before. That's something we spent a lot of time on together when we worked together.
And I fully say I'm the worst. I trust myself way too much. Of course, it's going to work.
I'm sure I've
having a developer, right?
It'll work. Yeah.
It worked. It's fine.
But I love it when a developer will go, yeah, I'll go jump on it. I'll just, shoot me over the code as you get it written. I will test the holy what for out of it for you so that we can, enable the team. It's those sorts of behaviors that's where you go, okay, cool. And then you call out after the fact to reinforce that is a positive behavior,
right?
Shine the glory spotlight on them for that, even though, what did they deliver? Nothing or everything, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, this is something, it really resonates with me because I think, we mentioned earlier on, right? Like Graeme and I have a lot of overlapping philosophies when it comes to leadership and management, but certainly I like to I feel like I take a back seat when it comes to recognition and and saying the team accomplished this, so and so accomplished this, so much so that I have several times been obviously penalized for doing so. I have been explicitly called out before in a sort of a performance review type of thing for saying you talked about other people more than you talked about yourself. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm managing teams and I'm working on projects with people. So that's penalized me. And more recently, actually, at Microsoft, I had a situation where going for promotion, I was told, I'm not making myself visible enough. And it's this battle of of course, when I talk about the work I'm doing, it's not I delivered this project. It's all of my team members are delivering these things. So I communicate stuff that way. And unfortunately, I need to find different either forums, different communication medium to be able to say, look, to my manager or my skip level, this is my impact, right? This is my specific contribution to this, because they know the team is delivering that stuff. So I think it's a balance, and it's really difficult for me personally because of that leadership style.
Yeah, I can feel that. It's an interesting thing to walk of, where do you claim the credit? Where do you give the credit? I haven't seen it. I don't know if I've read a whole lot on that specific topic, because that's a really interesting one to. I mean, in fairness, I tend to lean the other side. I tend to make sure that my management knows exactly what I did, even if it is just I got the team straightened out.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to do a better job of that.
I do think. Well, and like Nick, this is like this falls under what we would call managing up, right? Like you probably want to do what you're doing in the spotlight publicly, promote and praise the team for their successes. But when you are behind closed doors talking to someone who leads you and needs to know like what you've been up to, what you need from them, it's a lot more like, well, here's what I did to achieve the outcomes that the team arrived at.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's funny because it's like the advice that I give people that I manage, or even like early in career mentees, it's like, hey, when you're talking to your manager, talk about like not just the lines of code you're changing, like no offense, they probably don't care so much. But, talk about the impact, your interactions, like the things that you're delivering, where you're blocked, all these things, like more high level, but impact is really good. But behind closed doors for me, I don't phrase things like I am doing this. Obviously, like I said, my manager knows that it's the people on the team that are delivering things, but I have to be more conscious to say like, do it well, like for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And yeah, it's that's fascinating. Like, I guess I've worked with so many large personalities in my career, and I don't know whether that's because I've been accused of being a larger personality in my own, and so I tend to find myself in places that can tolerate me, which often requires larger personalities.
Larger, even larger.
Even larger, yes. Yes. That's a fascinating thing. But yeah, I like that idea, though. Yeah, talk about the impact
right
on things. That's just a great advice for everyone, I think. What was the impact? Good, bad, or otherwise?
Yeah, that's at Microsoft in general, like, and I know Microsoft's not like the standard for everything, right? But one of the things especially that we focus on when it comes to like performance, rewards, promotion, things like that is it's not like trying to move away from just like, hey, it's who you know kind of thing. It's a big tech corporation. I feel like there's always going to be a little bit of that, but it should be based on the fact that you're getting visibility of the impact that you're delivering, right? Like the people that are making decisions about being able to ensure that you can be promoted are seeing the big impact that you're having. So at the end of the day, it should come down to impact. If the impact is big enough, then more people will see it and understand the scope of it. So,
well, and also it gives you a chance. Like the thing about that I have seen implemented is describing the impact gives you a chance to talk about the value of your work. So the people who are loudest or have the biggest laundry list of shit that they did and are really good at busy work aren't the ones that are getting all the promotions and getting all the spotlight, which I have in larger organizations seen. I don't think it's necessarily a larger organization thing. I think it's that people who prefer busy work tend to organizations where they can get away with that. And I mean, Nick, like, from some of our startup history, smaller organizations, like, it's not going to fly. You can't, there is no hiding behind, I'm just doing a bunch of useless crap.
This goes back to Sean's point,
but
too,
I think
right? He was saying that he had some opportunities to say, hey, look, I want to try this out. Like, can I? Like, it's almost like getting that permission to go try an experiment or whatever. But if you're not getting the permission and you're just doing the busy work, like filling your time, like there's a really big difference between those things. Like extra projects.
And I will say, like, and this is very specific to my last position. I had a developer who would go off and do things, but not tell me. So then it becomes, well, where's the thing that you're responsible for? Well, I did this other thing instead. Buddy, come on. Like,
so Sean, this is interesting though. Right? So I'm curious how,
And
like, how did how does that look different? Because I think you had some really good experiences in your career where, like, you got to go forward to leadership management, right, and say, like, hey, like, I think this is important. Can I go try it? And I don't know if this is like it works so well, not only because you had good managers, but maybe because some of your personality traits like help you sell ideas better, right? How does that look
here's the
different
number one
from
thing:
the others?
communication. It's all about communication. One of the few principles I like. Again, I'm big on principles, and there's some principles I bring to every team. That I'm just like, look, these are what I have found. Really, if you embrace these, good things happen. Above whatever else, right? Communication is one of them. The difference is I saw a thing that was interesting. It was shiny and sparkly and squirrel, right? And instead of going and doing it, I went and talked to my manager about it first, right? So we can have that conversation about its true value, right? And then if I am going to pivot onto that thing, he's aware he can manage up and manage other expectations, right? We're now on the same page and we can handle that. When someone goes rogue, that doesn't work. Like it's literally the antithesis of a team, right? I tell my teams that you should work not just with each other but for each other, right? And when you're going rogue, when as a team, like let's just take an agile, Scrum scenario. As a team, you've committed to a body of work for that sprint. When you go rogue and go do something else because you've got ooh shiny syndrome and you don't complete what you're supposed to do, you're not helping your team. You're handicapping your team. You're sabotaging your team. You're working against your team. Even if that thing might have actually been good for the organization, right? And all. But you're not, because you're putting yourself and your ideas above everyone else and just saying, I know better. I don't even need to talk to you about this.
Sometimes people don't recognize the extent of the impact. I have been working with junior engineers on understanding, even when you make a decision to go the extra mile and you feel like you're really doing the right thing. Because look, like I'm helping, I'm doing more than is expected of me. Or you expand the scope of something to include tackling some tech debt. And maybe it's really painful tech debt that everybody on the team complains about all the time. The thing that people often negate is, well, okay, you chose to do that, so you made a decision. It took a little bit more of your time, but maybe it wasn't even that much time. Oh, okay, but guess what? Like, it affects a bunch of services, so now we have to run a bunch of extra CI builds. Well, there's CI spend, which, by the way, we're budget constrained. And like, oh, now we have a bunch of new builds in a bunch of our services that need to be tested. So someone's got to test that. And they were already committed to a bunch of test work. And then we have to deploy that. And by the way, we have an on-call person in case things go wrong. And if something goes wrong in that change that people weren't expecting, it's even harder for that person. And you kind of like start pulling this thread to be like, look, you thought this extra 45 minutes was being helpful, but look how many people you chose not to include in the decision who are affected as a result of that. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's again just one of those reasons. Let's talk about it. I love it when a dev comes to me and says, hey, I see a thing, I want to work on it. Or, hey, I see a thing, I think this is a problem. Okay, let's talk about it. Is this a we're going to crash and burn tonight problem? We're going to crash and burn in a week? Or can we put this on, right? What is sometimes that varies, right? But being able to say, okay, good. Yeah, we'll put that off. I love that you found it. We'll move that to next sprint, right? We'll push for that being included in the next sprint so that everyone else can be, and I think this is something, that as a good manager, being able to say, look, I hear you. I recognize, I'm giving validation to what you brought to me, right? So that they will do it again in the future instead of just going, no, go, but saying yes, but not now.
Even what you said about like going to the team and like clearing it with the team first. I think when you say, I know what you're saying about there's no dev manager in the Scrum model. I think if you want to take the approach of, well, you don't have to clear it with the dev manager, but you should clear it with your team. I still think the dev manager's role is about understanding how to get the rest of the team the right level of business information to be able to make the right decision in that context.
Oh, absolutely. But
I think,
I guess where I was going with that is not that, but just the general principle of communication.
right.
You know, and my last team, the transformation that I saw with them, when I took over the team, it was a collection of individuals. It was not a team. What I saw at the end was literally what I'm talking about is where someone would go, hey, I just recognized we have an issue. I would like to address it, and I'd like to pull it into the sprint in favor of this other thing, right? And I could sit there and just go, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. Right? It works good. Or I could say, yes, however, here's some counterfactuals that, could, impact that. But, but that's what I saw was instead of people going rogue all the time, was then people coming and saying, hey, look, I found a thing. Can we talk about it? Can we do something about it? And that was amazing. But really comes down to communication. So much comes down to communication.
Yeah, I think that's probably like I really like that you brought up earlier from your own experiences that you had managers that enabled this for you. So I really appreciate hearing that.
So I want to go back if I can in my experience. My dad was big on pay it forward. There's things that people are going to do for you that you cannot pay back. And when he told me this the first time, I had no idea what he was talking about because I was a teenager.
Oh, too.
Right. But what I've realized is yeah, I can pay it forward, but I want to, whether it's, as a dev manager guiding new devs, as a ski and snowboard instructor, bringing people into the sport, whatever, I'm paying forward something, a gift that someone gave to me. Right. Like I said, I had some great managers that like, I can't pay them back. The people that brought me into skiing and snowboarding, I've said thank you, but that's about all I can do. Right. But if I can be the manager, that someone looks back and go, and they go into management or they just have a very successful development career and they're like, that guy really did good by me, and made me enjoy this more. Great. Or, like with skiing and snowboarding, when, someone actually asked me, why do I do this? Right? It's a part-time gig. I said, because someday, 20 years from now, you're going to be writing and someone's like, what got you into snowboarding? And you're like, I had this coach. I don't even remember his name, but he was pretty cool and he made it fun and he got me hooked. And I'm like, I'm good with that. And I think if a lot of managers approach that way, instead of just thinking about, well, we need to get X done, yeah, I think you're going to be more successful. That's just me.
I don't know if we thank managers enough. I know you said like all we can do is thank them, but I'm a manager. Maybe as a director, that sounds funny, but I do have someone who manages me. But I wrote a LinkedIn post recently where I reflected on, or maybe it wasn't recently. I don't know. Add 4 years for COVID. So at some point in the last 4 or 5 years, I wrote a LinkedIn post where I was thanking the different people that I reflected on in my career. That one moment changed the trajectory of my career entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had some of those moments that you described as well. One manager, she hired me into BlackBerry. She's the whole reason I got into tech and totally took a chance on me. Part of the reason I got into management was because someone, when I was working in San Francisco, let me build a team where I was not a manager. And then I said, we should have more people do this role. And they agreed or found my pitch compelling and then let me lead that. And then I was then on the path to management. Or, there's just like little bits here and there. And I think, yeah, I had a moment where I was like, gosh, these were pivotal to my career and these people may not know that. I should at least say thank you. But then to your point, I have taken a bunch of those things that I learned from those opportunities and tried to apply that to the people on my teams in hopes that the same thing can happen. And in some ways, hoping to just do a service to the industry. And I really appreciate.
You want to hear something funny? I've reached out to a few people and explicitly thanked them. The CEO of the company that I was at in 2006, where really that was my first management gig and the place where I got my start of doing some really fun and interesting things and really started to understand what was really cool about this industry. He's back in Germany now, whatnot, but I reached out to him on LinkedIn. We were connected, and I said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but just want to say thank you." And he goes, "That's very nice. I have no idea who you are."
That's radical candor at its finest.
But that's but at the same time, like that dude, like he's been a CEO of some large organizations, and this was almost 20 years ago, right? 2006, so 20 years ago. I'm not expecting him to remember me. I was this young kid and whatever, cool. But the fact that he was the kind of person that could have that kind of impact, instead of just being, well, you're whatever, meh. I remember one day he sat down. I was going back to the burning the midnight oil, doing the thing, right? I was pounding away on a new app. I thought everyone in the office was gone. And this guy sits right down next to me. And he goes, "Hey, what you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing this, and I'm explaining to him. I'd met the guy once, knew nothing of his background. I just knew he was my boss's boss, like, boss's boss's boss, right? No. And he's like, "Well, if you could do, and he gave me some actually really good advice on the app. Well, there's a reason for that because he's got a PhD in computer science. But he was totally chill, totally cool. Just, hey, dude, but what you doing? Like, but that support, that sort of thing was, as you said, pivotal in my career. And for him, it was a drop in the bucket. And I think as managers, we don't know when that moment is going to happen. Right? When's that one time that you say yes to someone, or you have that opportunity to show a little compassion to a dev, or support an idea that to us might have been basic, and okay, I've had that thought 32,000 times, but it was the first time it happened for them, right? And rather than dismiss it, go, rock on, congratulations, you just leveled up, or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. We don't know as managers when that's going to happen.
If I can summarize something I think I'm picking up in a lot of what you're saying, is the way I frame this to people who join my teams, often early when they join, so that we're clear on our positions, is my job is first to help you be successful here at this company on this team. If I can't do that, it's to help you be successful here at this company elsewhere. And if it can't do that, then it's to be successful somewhere else. But I believe that is like fundamentally my job as a leader, above all else. And I have even said to my lead, who currently is the COO at the organization, when push comes to shove, I'm often thinking about what I need to do that is best for the individuals on my team over what the org is expecting me to do for my team. So
absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. Like I would probably be stealing that phrasing because you say it better than I do. So yeah, no, it's 100%. I've actually given a referral to an employee for an employee to leave the organization. He had an opportunity to go do some really cool stuff, and we didn't have a place for him to grow. And he was one of those that was growing quickly and amazingly. I wish I could have kept him, but if I'd kept him, we would have stifled him. So yeah, you have to grow. You have to, so one of the roughest things, like just going, yes, this is the guy you need to hire. Yes, I can't afford to lose him, but yeah. Mm-hmm. I will say this is so refreshing to me. Seeing guys like you thinking about this, talking about this, and, really putting this out here. And getting other people, who are thinking, I won't say in the same way, but, not in the kind of the standard well, you do this to this, and there's the 4 boxes and the 6 boxes, and there's the this and the that and the performance versus, or was it ability versus motivation and blah and whatever. But really talking about like what does it take, within the lens of software development.
And yeah, Sean, I think before I was telling you that's how Graham and I started this, right? It was really, we're chatting and we're starting to realize like we're learning a lot from each other. This is probably great to share with people. So it was awesome to talk with you, hear about your journey, hear about the things that made like the leaders you had great and how you're trying to sort of re-implement that for the people you're working with. I think that's awesome.
I really appreciate what you guys are putting out.
Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. I mean, that's the goal, was to start I don't know the right word, community of people who recognize that there is more to learn by conversing, hearing each other's experiences. I think you said we don't have perfect runs, and we can look back and learn from what we did previously or failed to do previously. But it's just as effective to hear others are going through the same thing, and perhaps are approaching it differently, so we can apply that next time as well. So reflecting on others' experiences and not just our own is really why we're here and why we're trying to do this, I think.
No, I absolutely, I really appreciate it. And it's, you think about it, we do this with code. Hey, I've got a problem. We call it Stack Overflow, right?
That's right.
I've got a problem. Chuck it up there for the community to diagnose, and so we can tell you what you're doing wrong.
Right.
We don't have Stack Overflow for managers.
We got to rebrand the podcast.
No, but I think you're onto something.
or if we do, I haven't found it. Yeah, right? Like management overflow. No, I love the title. Dude, where's my code? But yeah, we don't have that. We've got people on LinkedIn saying do this, do that. Some people have some really good stuff. Great. We've got umpteen billion management books. But I am not aware of a community or a place where I can go, I've got an employee that is having this challenge or this thing. Does anybody have an idea? I love it.
Sean, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you? And I'll follow up with you offline as well for links and all that, but if you want to let people know.
Yeah. I'm most active on LinkedIn when I'm active on LinkedIn. The rest of my socials have pretty much gone to sleep. I've actually actively disengaged from a lot of social media. The Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. I'm still there. Every so often something will, creep out, but I find that my mental health is better for not being on them. For a lot of that, and especially on Instagram, I very much curate who I follow now and what I consume. LinkedIn, I've actually really enjoyed being much more involved in that. I think there's a lot more value per screen time than any other platform. Do you have my own website that every so often I'll write something and check it up there? I don't know, but that's or just come find me at Stevens Pass in the winter. I'll be up. Shameless plug there. Yeah, come ski, come snowboard. And if you don't, come find me. I'll teach you. So
awesome,
all
Sean.
right.
Well, thank you so much for folks listening. Like I said, I'll get Sean's information in the description, in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Comment and let us know what you thought. And Sean, thanks so much for joining us.
Definitely subscribe. Smash the subscribe. So, gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. It's been an honor. Thank you.
It's been great.
Cheers.